Hey guys, Michael here from Dapper Raptor, and in this video we're going to continue learning about blueprint interfaces. If you have not watched the first episode that covers the theory behind what blueprint interfaces are, why you should use them, and how they work, I would recommend doing so. Link to that is in the description. Other than that, in this video we're going to go through the process of replacing the interaction system we have using casting with one made with interfaces. So let's get started with that. To do this, we're going to jump into our controller, and we're going to look at replacing all this. So let's break this off and just move this down here. We won't delete it just yet because I want to use that for demonstration after. But what we want to do is we want to set up an interface function on here. To do that, we need to make our interface. So open up the content browser, right click, go to blueprints and click on blueprint interfaces. Give it a name. I'm going to call it bpint interaction. And that's because we're going to tie all interaction functions to this one interface. If we open it up, we're going to see something that looks very similar to the standard blueprint editor, but you're going to notice it says read only here. And that's because this graph cannot have any logic. All it does is contain message functions, which are basically pointers. It's just telling the target you give it to try and run this function. Hopefully that'll make more sense in a second, but for now, just know that you can't put anything in here. You can add inputs and outputs, but you can't add any actual logic. We're going to call this function interact. Now you can add multiple functions. You can add as many as you want. We're just going to keep one for now, and we're going to hit compile and save. That's all we need to do in here. We're going to actually close our interface now. In our controller again, we're going to drag off the hit actor, and we're going to type in the name of the function we just made, interact, and we're going to look for interact bracket message close bracket. It's very important. Sometimes you're going to see multiple of them. In fact, if I hit context sensitive, we're going to see one here that's not a message. We want the message, and that is because if you read the tooltip there, it says message. This does nothing if the target does not implement the required interface. So by using the message, if we try and fire this off, because we don't have any filtering here, this just returns any hit actor. If we try and fire this off on the wall, for instance, we're not going to get an error. All that's going to happen is it's going to just ignore this node and keep going. Other than that, that's all we need to do. So we have replaced this logic with this. We hit compile and save, and we can close the controller. Now, if you fire up this now, it's not going to do anything because we need to actually set the interface up in the objects themselves. So let's do that. Let's jump into blueprints and open all three of these actors, which is our door, our ball, and our button. To implement the interface in the targets is a little bit more work, but still pretty simple. What you want to do is click on class settings, go to interfaces over here on the right, click on add, and then find your interface. Click on it, and it might look like nothing has happened, but you'll see down here we have interfaces. If we expand that, we see our interface function. Make sure you hit compile after adding a new interface. And other than that, we can either right click and go implement event, or we can double click and that'll implement it for us. And we can just drag that up here and connect that up to the same logic because we know that this interact with door works. So let's hit compile and save. Let's drag this off screen here and let's see. So we've implemented it for the door, but not these two. First thing, let's check and see if we get any errors. Using it on the ground, we don't. If we try and use it on the door, a ball, nothing happens. But if we go to the door works as before. That's great. That's how we want it to work. So let's go through and do the same process for the button and the ball. So we open the button, go to class settings, go to interfaces, add, type in bpint, add interaction, hit compile, and then double click on interact, drag it up, and replace the old event with that. Go over to the ball, hit class settings, go to interfaces, add, type in bpint, interaction, compile, double click, and then replace that logic again. Compile and save. With that, we should now have all three of these working. Door opens and closes, the ball bounces, and the button goes down. That is everything you need to do to get interfaces up and running. So what we have done there is we've replaced all that casting logic and all these hard references with this generic actor reference and an interface message. That's all it does. So if we now look, if we go here, while we've still got this here, they're all still hard references in there. So we're going to see that it now it still has those in there. It also now has the interaction itself. But if we close this, we delete these, hit compile and save again, and we check our reference viewer, we now are no longer loading the door, the ball, or the switch as soon as the controller is loaded. It's that easy. We've managed to make the logic much more readable with a single node here instead of a chain of 20, 30 plus nodes once you get a whole lot of interactions. And we've managed to avoid all those actors being loaded 100% of the time. So now they will only be loaded when the engine deems them necessary to load. That is how you get started with interfaces. In the subsequent videos, we're going to go over a bit more advanced uses. We're going to add some input and output to these interactions. And then in the last video, I'm actually going to set up a extra system with the interaction where we use interfaces to power an on-screen widget. But that's how you get interfaces up and running. Hopefully that all makes sense. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below the video. Other than that, thank you very much for watching.